Hello and welcome. This is Japan, and we had our first ever, I guess, like PLE type major event for Evolve. I guess it's technically episode 33. I'll have to see next week to see if they like actually label it like that. I don't think so. I think it's like that little blimp out there where it's just kind of like a separate thing, and it definitely delivered. It was a very interesting concept that they were even going to have this. I definitely feel like they really loaded it up with like obviously the two title matches, which was great to see. I feel like the middle match didn't necessarily like fit the whole like idea of this, but at least it was like a once in a lifetime like type of match that you don't see that often. So at least there was something here. So we'll discuss the show. There was a couple different things that happened, and yeah, we'll just talk about it. So we started off with Jackson Drake versus Bryce Donovan for the Evolved Men's Championship. Honestly, the match had some really good back and forth. I definitely kind of thought at least one or both titles would flip, so I was a little surprised Jackson Drake held on to it. I think they kind of is kind of built around like that it's probably going to be Kiana Carver, and they just kind of wanted to have this like side thing to get rid of part of Vanity Project. It is interesting because this is filmed, I think, 3 weeks ago with Zeta Steel not renewing her WWE ID program thing. I think that means she's probably going to stop showing up on the show at some point. I'm not 100% sure how they work that or what they're going to do with that. So it's kind of interesting. That's why I thought maybe they would lose or Jackson Drake would lose because then. They would then shift it where she would also maybe leave the group because maybe she thought they were losers or something like that. Anything that could have worked. But then again, it didn't happen. So I guess we'll have to see what happens next. But I thought the match altogether was really good. It was definitely a solid, great way to start off the show. I think I might have been a little bit like wishing they could have either done more or given them a little bit more time. It just felt like it was a pretty solid match, but it never got over that hump to being like super, super great or anything. So I'll put it as a solid B. Great idea, everything in it with the turn and Bryce Donovan leaving, I guess like turning face and leaving the faction was an interesting idea because he never quite fit in that faction. So I think it really does help and see what he does next with it. Then we were told that we got more ID prospects coming soon. I do kind of like that idea. I like that, we've got some fresh people in there. Obviously, they released a bunch of people, so sadly, that is the reason why we're getting a bunch of people. But stuff like that happens in wrestling and just anything in general. So I'm kind of cool. I'm kind of excited to see what happens here. So I'm gonna put it up in S tier. I'm not super into a lot of the big indie scenes. I know of a few different people. Nobody that I think would be on WWE radar. I think they're either a little too small or a little bit too big. So I feel like this could be interesting to just meet some brand new people. We also had a little bit of a promo with Adrenaline Drip. I meant to include it, but it just kind of was a similar thing that they're ready for a rematch, which I'm completely on board with this tag teams getting more and more action because it's just more people out there and they tend to be the majority of the matches that rate really high because they're just good matches and you can kind of that people barely have to really go out there. They can just supercharge whatever 3-4 minutes that they have, and it looks so good compared to some of the other matches where you only got sometimes 6 minutes to impress, and some of the people kind of struggle with there. We also had a backstage segment that had a bunch of different parts to it, but it was essentially Chantel Monroe and Mason Holiday talking to Wendy Chu, trying to get her to talk, and then Layla Diggs and Mason Holiday and then Chantel Monroe came up and started mocking Wendy Chu. I guess it'd be a decent feud. I feel like Chantel Monroe is like kind of just all over the place. I think they haven't really quite decided what to do with her character, but I feel like this is not a bad feud to have a kind of a baby face Wendy Chu versus the heel Chantel Monroe. I think it could possibly lead to something. I'll put it up in A. It was a bit of an awkward segment. It's the only reason why I wouldn't put it up in S because Chewy's just standing there dressed like a dad. I really don't know what Chewie needed to be there at all. None of that had to be him standing there. Then we get to the bull. I couldn't even think of the name of it. It's the bull rope match, or God, what is this match called? I just completely forget. I know it's like you're just basically tied to each other with the bell in between them. I think it's a very limiting match where like you really can't do a lot of stuff, and the two in here, unfortunately, are some of my least favorite wrestlers. So I just wasn't really pumped for this. I watched it. I tried to give it my best. I will say the ending did look really nice. I think with Tate Wilder's kind of finish, I think that definitely cemented it to being a little bit better. I think I was writing that it would be really towards like the D category because it just really wasn't entertaining, and like the spots that they did, they didn't really use the brutality of the rope to really make it better. Like, and it just didn't fit for this type of rivalry either. Like, we really this could have been like a best of three, and this is the third one or something that would have really set it up to being more brutal. And it just kind of just felt like they limited themselves so much with that. So just for the finish in general and just trying to help Tate Wilder not always get in the D category, I'll put it in C. I still think it was a decent match. I just really don't think it belonged on this card. If this was on next week's show to start off with, I think it would have been way more received. And like I said, I just think it needed more of a build too. So I think maybe even 2 weeks from now, and they would have built up this match and this rivalry. I think it really would have honed in with this type of match. It's an oddly specific match to really be used in certain categories, and this definitely was not one of them. Then we had a backstage thing with Stevie Turner talking to Sean Legacy and this actor from Tubi. I never watched really anything else on Tubi other than Evolve, so I've never heard of this person. Big Jaw, I think it was what they called him. Um, Interesting thing because now that we know all the releases and everything going on, we know Stevie Turner's no longer with them, and they basically said that like Sean Legacy and Idris Inoue are gonna have one more match. Again, Idris Inoue is gone, so I would assume this would be the last match that he's going to have in Evolve, which is crazy that he leaves WWE and he still has two more matches on TV. If that ends up being the case, they might pivot if depending on if he's left in between these weeks, because I know Evolve tends to be about 3 to 4 weeks behind, and I want to say it happened like 3 weeks ago, so there's a very good possibility it happened. So I guess Big Jaw's going to be the GM next week and do some fantasy booking, I guess. It could be interesting. I really think it could be. I do really think like a show like Evolve would really benefit from having like a Cyber Sunday type PLE type event where back in the day WWE had it where you go online and you could pick matches and pick opponents for people. I think that would be something that would work really good with Evolve if they set it up like now and then had the matches in 4 weeks or whatever. They could really do some stuff because then you would also know the gauged interest for people to decide what to do, because like I can understand in the main rosters you're gonna probably get some matchups that WWE doesn't want to run because it's like these are matchups we want to save for special cases. But down in Evolve you could just get some really cool fantasy booking on people, and maybe if people like this or maybe we get like 10 likes on this video, maybe I'll run like a little bit of a, I don't know, small video on what I would choose, I guess, to do a little card. I don't know. I was trying to think of something, so I guess we'll see if that happens. If we get 10 likes on this video, I'll do that. In general, I think this segment's interesting. I guess I'll put it in B because it's like most of the people that were involved in this fate is not going to be there anymore, so I really don't know what they're planning on doing. I have a feeling this is just could be like an awkward thing that they just kind of try to forget about. Then we get to the main event. Absolutely deserves to put this match on the main event. Kendall Gray and Callie Armstrong were in the first ever Evolve episode against each other in tag team action, and they've kind of already built this rivalry throughout this entire time. So this was kind of the cinematic type thing that you wanted. I feel like they built Kendall Gray up so well, and she's doing so much stuff like showing up in Evolve or in NXT. She just was in the Battle Royale, which technically would be like a little bit later. Like she did that after she already knew she won the title. It's the only weird thing about stuff like that, but I think that's also kind of really cool that they did that. And this match absolutely cooked. I think both of them did amazing work, and I really feel, as a little bit of a side note, I feel like Kelly Armstrong should just be called up to NXT. I think like almost when you have like this type of longer title run, it was over I think like 150 days, and it seemed like she really put some stuff together. You might not need to be on Evolve anymore. I didn't. I just died of a. I think I've never sneezed in a video before, and I absolutely just died there. I feel like they should definitely just send her up to NXT. I mean, we know that's where she's going anyways next. So like, why delay that inevitability of just putting her up there and letting her thrive? Because like, what does she do next? Honestly, in Evolve, like you don't do a rematch. Maybe she takes out one more person or takes somebody out that's maybe like in the caliber of Evolve, but or in like NXT, but I really don't see it. Like, maybe just straight up go to the next person. I feel like that's kind of what you just do. You go what's next and just hone it in. But this match absolutely cooked. I think they did a great job with it. Kendall Gray definitely would deserve this. She's fast become one of my favorites on Evolve. I think she might be my favorite altogether. And it makes a lot of sense because she's just doing great work out there. And I like what she's been doing on NXT too. So I want to see how this title run goes. And, is this going to be like a Kylie Bright gets jealous and turns on her? Or does somebody just come out there and catch up to her? I really do think she can put on some good matches. So that's going to be a really fun thing. Callie Armstrong did great with it. And maybe if we get how about 5 likes, we'll do a title rundown like I've done on some of the other titles when somebody loses a title and talk about all the matches that they had for the title and kind of give their title run a rating. Yeah, give a little bit of goals for this video, and if you made it to the end, don't forget to like, comment, and this obviously goes up in S tier. So yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. This has been Japan. Bye guys.